station with the most local news. This is News 4 at 6:30.
Right now on News 4 at 6:30, moving forward, more plans are unveiled for the former Women and Children's Hospital. We'll tell you about the progress being made tonight.
And we've got a couple of lake effect snow showers out there, but overall, most of you dry with clear skies. I'll let you know how that will impact the temperature coming up.
And if you're looking for love online, you could be a scammer's next target. News 4's El Waters has a consumer alert you need to know about. Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight at 6:30. I'm Christy Kern.
And I'm Dave Graber. Today's sun was certainly a warm welcome and a warm change, but tonight we take a turn back into the bitter cold. Meteorologist Kaylee Wen is taking a look at your forecast and a deep freeze in your forecast. First at 6:30. Kaylee?
It is going to turn bitter tonight. If you step outside, a lot of you already in the 20s, some of you in the teens, and it's going to continue to drop as we move through the next few hours here. A look over the One Seneca camera shows you not much to talk about in terms of snow, in terms of rain. Some of you do have a little bit of lake effect, though, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But here's a view of those temperatures. 23 right now in Buffalo, while if you head south, places like Springville, like Olean, are sitting in the teens. And wind speeds have backed off a bit over the last few hours, but still is breezy in some spots. So areas like Niagara Falls and Buffalo, looking at between 10 and 15 mile per hour wind speeds. South of there, more like 3 to 8. And those calming winds are going to be the trend as we move through the overnight. So the good news is that it will not feel breezy and the feels like temperature won't be quite as cold. However, because the winds are going to be backing off and we'll see clearing skies, that will make the actual temperature kind of plummet. Now here's a look at that lake effect I mentioned. It's mainly across Niagara and Orleans County. It was a bit stronger earlier on, but at this point it has already started to dissipate and kind of fizzle out. And as we move through the evening, that will continue to happen. So not much in terms of weather for this evening, but we are tracking some rain showers that could impact your Valentine's Day plans. We'll talk about those coming up in my full 4 and forecast.
All right, Kelly, thanks very much. We're learning more details tonight about the future of the former Women and Children's Hospital.
Developers want to turn it into a mix of living and shopping space. The planning board met today at City Hall. News 4's Callan Gray is there with details.
The planning board voted to move forward with the process to eventually approve or deny the proposal for phase 1, which calls for redeveloping this parking lot here at the corner of Elmwood and Bryant, right next to the hospital. Up until now, there have just been informational sessions with the public, informal ones, to let them know what they're thinking of. Now the planning board will do its official assessment of the project. Now this phase 1 calls for redeveloping this parking lot to build a 6-story multi-use complex here at the corner with apartments, retail space, and restaurants. They'll need several variances to make this part of the project happen. The Green Code only allows for a 3-story building, and this would be double that. At the public information session, that informal session at the end of last month, people did express concerns about the height of the building, but this is just part of the massive plan to redevelop the 7-acre site. The developer tells us they're still assessing all of the buildings here.
You're talking about a series of buildings that were constructed from 1912 on. So truly, who knows what we'll find, but we're feeling that overall things are very promising for us to get in, get on site, and do our due diligence to make our mixed-use project of Elmwood Crossing happen.
They hope to kick off the state environmental review process this spring and say early indications show it may be a brownfield. As for the plans to redevelop this parking lot, the developer says they hope to break ground as early as this summer. Now, again, there will be public hearings as part of this process as it moves forward with the planning board, and city leaders will have the chance to make recommendations based on that input. So we may see changes to this proposal for phase 1 before it is approved. Reporting in Buffalo, Callan Gray, News 4.
Callan, thank you. Eastern Niagara Hospital in Lockport is facing a lawsuit after a man living nearby died of Legionnaire's disease.
Attorneys for the family say the hospital's cooling tower is to blame. Legionnaire's can be spread through commercial cooling units, and the hospital's cooling tower actually tested positive for the disease following an outbreak in 2016. More than a dozen people at the hospital and some living nearby got sick, and that includes 68-year-old Richard Jepson, who later died. Jepson's family is suing the hospital for wrongful death.
Niagara County lawmakers are going a step further in the fight against the opioid epidemic. They want to declare opioids a public nuisance. Lawmakers with the Opioid Task Force will make their case tonight by introducing a resolution they say will help Niagara County in its lawsuit against opioid manufacturers. Lawmakers want the drug companies to cover the costs they've had to pay to fight the drug epidemic.
The last statistics I saw put us fourth in the state as far as counties for per capita opioid prescriptions to our residents. That says a lot about what's happening out here, and despite efforts to decrease those numbers, we still see very high numbers of prescriptions.
Legislator Widish says 31 people in Niagara County died from drug overdoses last year. More than 300 overdoses were reported.
A former Niagara Falls police officer admitted today to living with a known cocaine dealer and doing nothing about it. Stephanie Costanzo pleaded guilty to the federal charge of managing a drug-involved premises. Federal agents say the 29-year-old Costanzo lived in the home, which contained drugs and scales, but she did not participate in any drug dealing. She faces a maximum of 20 years in federal prison when she's sentenced on May 30th.
Buffalo police have arrested a 12-year-old boy after police say he cut a girl's hand on a school bus this morning. Police say it happened while the children were on their way to Hillary Park Academy. Police say the boy used a pocket knife to cut the girl. She was taken to Oshai Children's Hospital for treatment. The boy is charged with assault and criminal possession of a weapon. He'll be charged as a minor.
A delivery driver for a new app called Skip the Dishes says he's lucky to be alive tonight after he was robbed and held at gunpoint. Paul Villamore was making a delivery to a home on Best Street around 2 this morning when he was attacked. Villamore says payments are usually made by credit card, but 19-year-old Robert Austin apparently wanted to pay with cash. Villamore tells us what happens next.
He gave me a large bill, so I handed back him his change. When he saw my wad of cash, he said, "All right, let's do this. I keep everything." Then he grabbed the whole pouch of cash and pulled out a pistol under his jacket. Was wearing a hoodie. My whole life just flashed before my eyes.
Villamore says he dropped everything and ran and then called Buffalo police, who he says arrived within minutes. They went back to the home and took Austin into custody and charged him with robbery and weapons charges. Police were able to retrieve all of the stolen money. As for Villamore, he says he will no longer be driving for Skip the Dishes. Millions of people use online dating websites hoping to find a companion or even a soulmate.
As its popularity grows, so does the risk of scammers trying to take advantage of others. News 4's El Waters has a consumer alert from the FBI.
The romance ripoff ring was based in the West African nation of Ghana. The scammers used a legitimate online dating website, MillionaireMatch.com, by posting fraudulent profiles on the site to attract victims, presumably with deep pockets.
I think they use this one because obviously it attracts people that are millionaires. They knew that this was, a target-rich environment with people that had a lot of money.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Scott Allen credited the FBI's white-collar crime squad with tracking down the fraud ring, netting a Ghanaian national, 32-year-old Adams Ahmed from Detroit, and a co-defendant on fraud charges. Allen described the scheme this way. The crooks would concoct impressive-looking profiles on the website and post them with pictures of actual businessmen.
And unfortunately, the victims thought they were legitimate and started online communications with these co-conspirators in Ghana.
One of the victims was a local woman who fell for a scammer posing as a self-made millionaire, and he took her for more than $700,000.
Business ventures that he was working on, and he promised that eventually he would come over to the United States, that they would have a life together, and obviously that just wasn't true.
Scott Allen cautions anyone looking for love on the internet to be cautious, especially when it comes to wiring money.
If you've never met this individual, don't, in person, even though it might seem like it's legitimate, even though they might seem trustworthy, it is not a good idea to send money over wires to people you don't know.
Al Waters, News 4.
We're here today to discuss the critical need to rebuild America's crumbling infrastructure.
President Trump unveils his long-promised plan to fix the nation's aging infrastructure. Straight ahead, Congressman Brian Higgins joins us live on set to explain why he thinks the plan is full of potholes.
And on the satellite and radar behind me, you'll notice there's a lot of clearing skies. That's because the high pressure system's planted over western New York. What that means for you coming up after the break.